What's up, guys? It's Katie, and I'm here today with an update for you all now that it's been a year and a half since I've been on the Sinclair Method for my own alcohol use disorder. So as I was thinking about making this update video, I was kind of wondering, what important things did I want to share with you as far as updates on my journey thus far. And there are three kind of updates I have for you that I'll talk more about in this video. The first one is to let you all know that I am now 6 months sober. This is not something I was expecting when I got onto the Sinclair Method. I didn't have that intention. So it's kind of a surprise. And I want to talk with you about how I've found myself in this place of being 6 months sober because of the Sinclair Method. The second thing I want to talk about is how much I have realized just how much alcohol and my alcohol addiction was preventing me from living a decent life, a good life, a great life. It was just keeping me down so much so, and I've seen myself progress and grow without it. So I want to just talk a little bit about that. And then the third thing is just to reflect on how grateful I am for this method and how different it is to have 6 months of sobriety under my belt through the Sinclair Method as opposed to what it was like when I had 6 months before when I went to the abstinence AA route. So I wanted to just talk a little bit with you all about those three things. So first, I'm 6 months sober, and this was kind of an accident. I don't even remember the exact date of the last time I had a drink. I know it was sometime in August of 2018, but I don't remember the date because I didn't intend to become sober on the Sinclair Method. I set out on this method really to just be able to drink less and not be binge drinking anymore, to not have hangovers anymore, and to feel like I didn't need alcohol every day. I remember when I first started on the method, I was like really excited to be drinking like 4 days a week. That was amazing, as opposed to 7 days a week. And then it just, continued to decrease from there where I was drinking less and less. But yeah, getting to where I'm at now, 6 months sober, it was kind of something that happened by accident. And I'll tell you a little bit about how it happened. So the last few times I drank, I was at a place where I was drinking about once a month. And when I would drink, I was starting to experience naltrexone hangovers, or the nal-overs that you see people talking about. And I didn't have issues with those up until like around a year on the Sinclair Method, where I would have one glass of wine or even less, and I would wake up the next day with this hangover. I was drinking so infrequently, I was still feeling alcohol in my system for a few days. And so I just wasn't feeling great the last few times I had been drinking. So my husband and I were taking a trip to France. He's from France. And I didn't want to feel sick at all on the trip. So I decided I wasn't going to drink on the trip because I'd been experiencing these naltrexone hangovers. That was no problem for me. I was drinking about once a month, and the trip was just a few weeks. Like, I didn't have any issues with that. I was actually fine to kind of know I was going into the trip without any intention to drink. Now in France, and my husband's family, everybody drinks wine. They drink wine with meals. They don't drink in excess, but they typically always have wine on the table, and people have a glass or two with their meal. And my in-laws, they have always seen me drink before. And so of course we arrive and we're having meals, and they pour me wine, and I say, oh, no. And it keeps happening. At every meal, there's a wine at my table, and they're pouring me more or offering it to me. And I just kept saying no. And I speak a little French, they speak a little English, so I was trying to convey to them, like, no thanks, I'm not going to drink. And for them, that's like, what? Because alcohol is such a part of their culture, and they drink it in moderation at, lunch and dinner. And so they didn't quite understand why I was refusing wine, and they just kept offering it to me. And finally, my husband communicated to them just to get the point across, she's quit drinking, she's not drinking anymore, like, don't give her wine, because he knew I had the intention to not drink on the trip. So that finally stopped them from continuing to pour me glasses of wine. Even though that wasn't true at the time, it was a way for them to stop pouring me alcohol. But when my husband said that, I remember like my gut was just like, like I got so scared because I hadn't considered, really deeply the thought of giving up alcohol for good. I kind of toyed around with the idea, but I wasn't planning to do that. And so when he said that, it just kind of invoked this fear in me of like, oh my gosh, could I really give up alcohol for good? I know when I started on the Sinclair Method, abstinence seemed totally out of the question. I was so relieved that I could continue drinking and not have to give it up for good through the Sinclair Method. And so here we were in France. My husband conveys to his family that I've quit drinking. And I really started to become curious and start to contemplate what that would be like for me if I was going to give up alcohol for good. And it was still very much a daunting experience. I had a lot of fear, as I mentioned. I didn't feel ready, but I still knew I wasn't going to drink on the trip again because I didn't want to have the naltrexone hangover. So as time just continued on, though, I was becoming really curious about this idea of me going sober and kind of leaning into the fear, getting curious about the fear. What am I afraid of? What is alcohol doing for me in my life? What is it doing to benefit me? What is it bringing to me? How is it harming me? I was like kind of spending this time in all this contemplation, asking myself these questions. And time just continued to pass from there, and I started to see myself not drink. Like the longest I had gone when we went to the France trip, I had gone a month without drinking. I was drinking about once a month. And then so when I got back from France, and it had been about a month, and then another month passed, and then another month, and now here I am 6 months in, and I'm sober. And it's so freeing. It's the most incredible experience. I don't miss alcohol at all. And that's not to say that these past several months of kind of contemplating my relationship to alcohol and what it's doing for me, that's brought about a lot of insight and allowed me to see more clearly into the fear I had about letting alcohol go. And a lot of that was things that I could deconstruct, like the social pressure of feeling like I needed to drink to fit in. That was a huge thing for me where, you know, it wasn't easy, even being on the Sinclair Method, as I was interacting with people who'd always seen me drink, to, you know, begin to tell a new narrative for myself, to show up to parties with sparkling water instead of wine, and, you know, refuse drinks and have to kind of have those awkward conversations about, you know, yeah, I'm not drinking anymore, or I gave it up. So that was one of the fears I had around alcohol and letting it go. And another is just, you know, for 10 years of my life, my identity was wrapped up in alcohol. Everything I did had alcohol involved in it, you know, socially, whether it was weeknights at home, like every single day revolved around alcohol. And so that's what I knew for 10 years. And even though it wasn't serving me, it was something I was very familiar with. And so the thought of having to embark down an unknown charted path of sobriety was like a little bit daunting. But yeah, as time went on and I just literally took it one day at a time, I've wound up here where I'm at today, which is 6 months sober, and really absolutely no desire for alcohol. And in fact, like, I'm repulsed from alcohol. The other day, my husband was drinking a glass of wine, and from across the room, all I could smell was alcohol and vinegar. It didn't even smell like wine. And I just remember that's what wine smelled like to me before I was addicted to alcohol. So it's just incredible to be returned to this mind space where that whole part of me in my mind that was, you know, dependent on alcohol and liked alcohol and had this whole relationship and life and story with alcohol, it's almost like it's just been erased out of my mind. It's pretty incredible. And then recently too, I was at the grocery store and I walked down the alcohol aisle, and I had like this gag reflex when I saw like a stack of beer or something, which, I haven't drank in 6 months. I haven't taken naltrexone in 6 months. And so this is where the Sinclair Method has kind of left me. Now I've been doing a lot of inner work on myself too. And I think in hindsight, when I first got on this method, I was like, I wonder if sobriety is possible. You know, I was curious about it, but I was still so afraid of it and so wrapped up in my alcohol dependence that I wasn't even ready to go there. And so I think deep down, when I'm really honest with myself, I did want to get to a place of sobriety. I don't think that's the goal for everyone who goes on the Sinclair Method, and I think that's fine. Like, if you're going on the Sinclair Method, I think the most important thing is just get to a healthier place where alcohol is not controlling you anymore, whatever that means to you. Like, all the power to you. But for me, I think that ultimately this is what I wanted for myself, and you know, through inner work, through questioning these beliefs that I've had around what alcohol is doing for me and how it's showing up in my life, it's brought me to where I am today, which is about 6 months sober, and no desire to drink or no want for alcohol at all. Now I still have naltrexone. I'm open to the fact that if I get an overwhelming desire to drink, I might take a naltrexone and drink, but yeah, it's pretty incredible. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is how much I'm realizing how much alcohol was keeping me living this very dull, kind of unengaged life. It was causing me to feel really just passively showing up in life, not really showing up with intention and awareness and excitement and passion for the day. And as the longer I've been sober and, the more inner work I'm doing, I'm reading so many books and watching so many inspirational talks about greatness and people that are just plugging into their potential and people who are successful and who I admire and the kind of life they're living. Like, I'm so inspired by those types of people. And so I've been doing a lot of inner work in that regard. And I'm just realizing how much, alcohol was keeping me kind of numbed out to really living my greatest life. Sure, I was still engaging in life and, growing and changing a little bit, but it was really keeping this just kind of like barrier to me to really develop, to really plug into that passion and purpose in life, which is really what brings us true joy and happiness. Alcohol was squashing my joy. It was squashing my ability to really feel genuine happiness. And I'm realizing now that is really a right to us. That is our natural state. I remember being a kid and feeling so much excitement for life that I have not felt again until recently. That feeling you have the last day of school, it's summer, you've got like the whole summer ahead of you, anything's possible. And even being a kid and feeling like, when I grow up, I'm going to do this and go after this, and I want to have this dream and that dream. And it just, alcohol like puts a kibosh on that. It kind of like allowed me to forget all of those feelings of joy and passion and happiness that I felt as a kid, and the dreams I had and the belief I had in my ability. Like, alcohol just got rid of all of that. And so with the clarity I have now, being sober and just showing up to life more engaged and as a creator in my own life, as opposed to just like a passive participant, I just realized how much alcohol was keeping me down in that regard. Because I was always in an alcohol fog, I was always hungover, and even when I was sober before the Sinclair Method, or would get, little bouts of sobriety, I was still tormented inside by the kind of craving and aversion to alcohol. I'd be triggered by alcohol, triggered by a bar, try to kind of avoid certain social situations, be wanting the drink and resisting the drink. And so even when I was sober before, I would get these glimpses of this joy and happiness, but I was still always met with this kind of like mental chatter of the alcohol dependence. And so having the opportunity to be sober without any of that noise, it's just amazing what it can do for living a great life. And I think, we all have that desire to feel true joy, to feel true happiness, to feel like we're living a meaningful life and making a meaningful contribution. And I was always seeking that, even in the throes of my alcohol dependence. I was always seeking it and always finding that I felt miserable because I couldn't figure out how to get there. I would, go on meditation retreats and watch inspiring talks and read books, and I'd get glimpses of it and moments of it. But to stay there for any length of time, day after day, it was pretty much impossible, because I'd pick up alcohol again, or I'd be tormented with the cravings and just fall into a depression. And so now I feel like that's finally possible, to really show up engaged in life and in service and just ask, what's my potential? What am I here for? And I'm a clear enough channel now, grounded enough in myself, feeling healthy enough to really go out and live my fullest life possible. So that's been an amazing transformation and insight that's really come, especially more so the last 6 months that I've been totally sober and free from alcohol. And then the last thing is just how grateful I am for this method. As I was kind of just talking about, quitting alcohol before the Sinclair Method compared to now, there is just no comparison. When I would get bouts of abstinence before, for years I was trying to quit. So I'd get a week or a couple weeks, or I got 6 months one time. Even getting a couple days each week of sobriety was a challenge. And I felt like I was always just fighting the alcohol, fighting the cravings, trying so hard to overcome it. And with the Sinclair Method, it has truly feels like it allowed me to have that part of my brain erased, that memory, that association, that relationship I had with alcohol. You know, I can look at a bottle of wine and not feel any emotion. It's almost like it's from a different planet and I've never seen it before and I don't even know what it is. It's just I have no emotion, no desire for it. And I see how rich and beautiful life can be without alcohol. And so not to be met with those cravings and triggers and, you know, needing to remind myself every day that I'm an alcoholic and I have this problem, like, you know, it's been a lot of work behind the scenes and within myself to really build up healthy coping mechanisms, relearn and re-engage in hobbies that I've forgotten about, ask the right questions, really go after my own growth and development. But it's been a night and day experience to be able to do this inner work and growth and development without having the noise and chatter of the alcohol cravings, without feeling like I'm triggered every time I see a bar or have to avoid certain situations because there's going to be alcohol there, or feel like I'm missing out because I'm not drinking. I have no feeling like I'm missing out without drinking. And, you know, through this process, of course, I've had to, along with doing the inner work, kind of have these awkward conversations with people where, you know, I have to let them know I'm not drinking anymore, or, you know, constantly be refusing drinks at parties. But it's done from a place where I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And of course, like, my good friends, they've totally understood and they support everything. And now it's totally become the norm where I show up to parties with coconut water or sparkling water and nobody even questions it. So of course, you know, any transformation is messy. It's not going to be a smooth, streamlined process. And I think if we're willing to show up and do the work and have these conversations and be curious about who we are and where we want to be, we can get to wherever it is we want to be. Even if it feels like that's an unachievable goal or I could never imagine myself there. A year and a half ago, I would have never thought I was having this conversation. It's still hard for me to believe sometimes that I'm 6 months sober and just totally free from alcohol dependence. It's incredible. So just don't ever lose hope. Keep asking yourself these questions that are going to empower you and invoke your potential and keep you moving forward and looking for the future. Try not to wallow too much in any pain or challenges that you're having because they're inevitable on the Sinclair Method or whichever method you take for overcoming alcohol addiction. But the reward is just absolutely unmatched, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you everybody for watching. If you've watched this long in the video, especially thanks to you, subscribe to my channel. I'm always making video updates on my experience and just sharing insights I've gleaned from, you know, life before and after alcohol addiction. Thank you so much for watching. You can always reach out to me. My contact information is below in the description box. Like this video if you've liked it, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.